Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the critically acclaimed Pop the Trunk podcast, now Patreon exclusively sponsored Hall of Fame, Recency Bias Radio with me, of course, as your humble host, Dave Smith. But this is one of the best moments of my channel's history because one of my favorite players, in my opinion, the devout GOAT of Big Brother Canada history, he has graced us with his presence. And see, I feel as if Dougy doesn't get enough credit for what he has done to push the brand of Big Brother Canada further. I feel as if the first time when he played this game during BBCAN12, there wasn't enough people willing to tell the truth about how hard his terrain truly was to traverse through. I mean, this guy overcame a lot, ladies and gentlemen. And hold on. Let's go ahead. Let me snap my finger real quick and let me show people what we working with. Oh, let's get it cracking in these streets.
Talk
You know what
your
I'm saying?
shit, baby.
You know, we got to do it,
Talk your
coach. We got to do it. But ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to have him here because this brother played one of the greatest games twice we have ever seen. And I always say, it's easy to do something great once, but the true measure of a great player is to be able to do it again. And this brother, he overcame all odds. Both seasons he played, no black man to speak of that he can relate to. And he still found a way to relate to everyone on his cast enough to never touch the block. Dougy, I'm so happy to be here, coach. And I'm so happy that I can speak to someone who has as many nicknames as I do. You feel it,
Trust me, baby. Trust me, man. I'm happy to be here. This is an honor for me. I've been a huge fan of your show since I came off my season. I've never really been into the podcast too much, but after reality television, there was a bunch that were asking me to hop on, pause, and really get me involved in the podcast scene. There wasn't too many that I liked, but there's just something about this one that's just so special. It's not just the truth. It's not just the truth that's spoken. It's fairness.
Absolutely.
It's the courage to speak on the fairness, and finally somebody who's down to have the Infinity Stones and do what's right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you were someone who had the Infinity Stones throughout Big Brother Canada 12, despite certain players doing everything they could to sabotage you along the way.
Yes,
My
sir.
patrons know firsthand. I felt like I was 20v1. You feel it, dig me, coach? I felt like even though we were behind a paywall, I felt like people still were kind of questioning whether I was on the right side of things. And then
Mm,
as they saw the season unfold, and we will definitely do a play-by-play, week-by-week analysis, because I feel as if a lot of people are playing selectively stupid in the postseason. They're
yep.
utilizing plausible deniability to act as if they are not guilty of doing what they did. And they're
Yep.
trying to use projectionism to place all of that blame, all of that guilt shame upon you, which I
Yep.
feel like is unfair because oftentimes this is what happens to many black men after a season ends. The easy thing to do is act like, oh, they were the issue. We can all settle for that decision. But the truth is, if someone watches this season with out rose tinted glasses, completely unbiased, and really gives Dougy the time of day, give him the benefit of the doubt, you will see not only did this brother really have the best interests of hot chocolate until Matt left, but if you really pay attention, every twist of this season was designed to derail Dougy's game the most. The first twist, an executive veto. Well, let's be real. He was part of the first twist, technically, with Spicy. But outside of that, though, Spicy, the first week of the game, she had 6 women ready to be aligned with nothing but women. You didn't even have a black man to play with. She had 3 sisters. No one's mad at that. I'm just asking, whoa, where's the fairness in that? Then they give her a super fan and Spicy Jr., aka Avery, someone who will never go against her, someone who will always do whatever she says.
Yep.
So if you're really counting, keeping track of the score, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm Stuart Scott to his Michael Jordan, clearly there's a huge deficit Dougy had to overcome on day one.
Yes,
Then
sir.
she had the audacity to expect you to throw the first HOH of the season, knowing that you had less allies on day one than she had, and you needed power more than she did. I would love to hear your take on week one from that perspective.
So first and foremost, You know, I always knew that when the bat signal was in the sky, somebody would have to come back to Gotham to save it. When they put me inside the house, I knew that regardless of who was in there, whether this was a full all-star cast, whether this was half all-stars, a couple all-stars, you know, whatever they decided to throw at me, I would be the number one target. Out of 170 house guests, if I were put back into that house, regardless of who's there, I would be the number one target.
Absolutely.
When I saw who was going to be my co-star, if you will, um, I was excited initially. I'd met her a few times after the show, and I thought we were going to really be able to take over and do something crazy. When I saw the other house guests, I was really alarmed. You know, with with with
Rightfully so.
with just the demographics and the optics of the situation. It was definitely not in my favor. You know, me and Victoria decided to feel everybody out, and you know, kind of see what's in the best interest of the both of us. And right off the bat, you know, she decided to spill the beans that there was an all girls alliance, which was very obvious. This was not a secret. We didn't have the backyard until day 9, so the house is half closed. The
Mhm.
people can only go in so many different rooms.
Harder to
So
hide.
when you've got all of the women spending all day together in one room, it's pretty safe to say that they're not just talking about makeup. Um, so right off the bat, I already knew that. I asked
And
Victoria about it.
ironically enough, when they did the fashion show, you were the one who brought the men to the side in the storage room and told them
Yeah,
there's a girls' alliance when they were
yeah,
doing makeup. It's
yeah,
funny how all this plays a role.
yeah. So Victoria had told me about it, and you know, I knew right off the bat that she was going to try to say that a guy had to go. So in one of our conversations, I asked her, because you know, you gotta play with the mind a little bit, right? So I asked
Absolutely.
her at first, I was like, well, what do we think about the guys? Right? Let's talk about the guys first. And she's like, okay, well, you know, all the girls want Tola, and you know, they want Matt gone, and you know, all this, whatever. And I was like, okay, okay, you know, I totally understand that. Well, you know, if we talk about the guys, we also have to talk about the girls. What do you think about the
Absolutely.
girls? And at that point, she had to give me something. And I was literally going to jump on whatever she had given me first. Of course, keeping it outside of one of the sisters. So
Absolutely.
she gave me Janine, and I said, "Well, that's it. Goodbye, Janine." As soon as she said Janine's name, it was over. It
Right,
was
because
over.
that was the only other girl that you could have really taken out on her
Yeah,
team during
yeah,
week 1 to provide
yeah,
context to those who may not have seen the season. It
yeah.
was either going to be Kayla or Avery on the block next to her, and we
Right,
needed no veto to be used on Janine, or
right,
else the Stone Age would commence.
right,
So, all in
right,
all, I love the way you approach week 1. I love the fact that she had the inclination you would just hand it to her, but you chose to compete, and that
right,
kind of defines the undertone of this season. The
right,
idea that it felt like a lot of ladies thought men shouldn't want to compete. They should just hand them a trophy. But your win won't hold the same weight if you don't earn it the way men have to earn it. And I don't want to sound mean or bad by saying it that way. I want this game to be a sport just like you do, Dougie. I watch one of your fantastic interviews with Silent Podcast. Let me shout out 8 Ball and let me shout out them because I think they did a great job of helping you really state your claim, control your narrative, and really get people to see the game on a different plane, right? So as we move on to week 2, you're the outgoing HOH. Spicy, she wants HOH badly. This is the week, probably the only week of the game after this point, I can say she really had your back, Devout. When
yep,
she backdoored Donna, that was a legitimate pro hot chocolate move from my perspective.
yeah,
That was when I was a huge supporter of Spicy. A lot of people that now like her because she's pro Bailey were the same ones that disliked her then because, oh, this is another Austin move. That's how they referred to it. They made it seem like, oh, she's always jealous of the pretty girl. So, and she was kind of jealous of Lexus, so that checks out too. But with that said, oh, the strays will be caught, coach. But with that said, though, week 2, got to give Victoria her credit. And that week she did what needed to be done. But in my honest assessment, It was your hard work by getting close to Vivek, which is what exposed East Coast on a larger platform, which made it easier for Spicy to have incentive to throw up Donna, which made it easier to have the votes to get Donna up out of there because it was still close up until almost the last minute. Donna had a chance. And I think because of the East Coast existence, or at least the narrative of the East Coasters, it made it much harder for her to campaign to stay. But it's
Yeah.
just interesting to me. You know, Donna had basically a showmance in principle with Todd, and a lot of the ladies were never threatened by that dynamic that much. But the minute Lexus is with Matt, everyone is up in arms, even though directors exist. And that moves me to week 3, Dougie, because this week, in my opinion, kind of hurt the credibility of the season. Because everything, all the hard work you put in the first 3 weeks, you were essentially able, actually, I meant week 4 is what ruined it, because Vivek won the week 3 HOH, and
Yeah.
you did a great job of convincing Vivek to backdoor Dinis. And what a lot of people don't realize is week 2, Dinis used Veto on Vivek. He wants the narrative to be, and this is in no way me trying to throw shade at Dinis, but I'm just aware how when people get eliminated, they always try to make it seem like they're the apex victim. The only reason why Dinis really used Veto on Vivek during week 2 is because Spicy fooled him into believing Matt was the back door.
Yep.
Everyone thought Matt would leave week 2, and
Yep.
that's why Dinis was willing to save Vivek. Dinis thought he was killing 2 birds with 1 stone, proverbially speaking. Spicy fooled him, and by fooling him, she fooled me into thinking she was loyal to directors and hot chocolate as well. So when we move to week 3, Vivek wins the HOH. Spicy just nominated him. Sure, Vivek has all the incentive in the world because who else in this on this entire cast does he really have incentive to nominate? Anyone else, he's kind of reaching for a reason to target them. You put in so much legwork to make sure Spicy didn't touch the block week 3, but people act as if all she did was put in the legwork to keep you off the block. Could you please speak to that for us?
So the thing that really bothered me throughout the game that I just couldn't let go is that I literally built Victoria's relationship on the other side through my finesse. Victoria wasn't spending time with any of these people. She was sitting in the rooms with the girls. So while she was sitting in the rooms with the girls, plotting and scheming and trying to sewer my game, I was out in the streets building up her name and her resume so that at no point in time did people look at her as a target. I made every single one of my allies want to go to the end with Spicy only after 1 week of gaming. So it was very upsetting to kind of see, how that was transpiring. But I knew that like it was like I was trying to tell the DR, but unfortunately they didn't put that in. They couldn't give me all the credit I deserve. But Victoria putting Vivek up and then Vivek winning HOH and not putting Victoria up, that's not because of Victoria's gameplay.
Absolutely. It's
That has
because
to
Fucking
be that,
Doggylicious. Doggylicious.
yeah,
because of him. Well, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
That has the Big Valboski written all over it.
Shout outs
So
to
for
Adam
me,
Pike,
it was
man. He's
like
a writer.
I really thought, yeah, shout out to AP. Adam Pike, it doesn't stand for Adam Pike no more. It's always perfect. But
The Marine.
I really thought that showed Victoria, like, look, like, I really got you out here. And I just really hope that you got me the same way I got you. And unfortunately, with the weeks to come, I just continue to see more and more and more receipts of her behavior. And yeah,
And I
an
truly
elephant never forgets. So
And I truly felt like week 3, she never really gave you the gratitude you deserved because she put all of the pressure on you to convince Vivek to get Dinis up there. It really all rode on you. And if
yeah,
he didn't throw up Dinis, he had to choose someone else. And if he wasn't going to choose Dinis, in my opinion, Spicy was the best choice for Vivek's overall game,
yeah,
right? And the way you were able to essentially turn him in a different direction. I remember Dennis's reaction by that pool table. He was perplexed. He could not believe, he couldn't fathom that a player like Dougalucci, the Poutine Poppy, Champagne Tone, the Forbidden One, They couldn't believe you were capable of whipping out the Egyptian God card the way you did. So
Yeah.
as we move along to week 4, the executive veto week, a week in which y'all had everything set up well. Vivek didn't target Spicy. Vivek, in principle, was working along with a lot of sisters and you. I believe y'all had like a melting pot alliance. Now ended up being fake in the end because the executive veto essentially empowered the ladies to take out Vivek with it. But the way people clown Vivek for getting out Dinis because he went out right after, but the way these same fans didn't keep that energy with Avery, when Avery backdoored Matt, to me, I thought that was more ludicrous than Vivek
Yep.
backdooring Dinis.
I agree.
When Vivek backdoored Dinis, he actually was in a better position after that.
Mhm.
If it was not for a twist that no one can see coming, huh? If it wasn't for that, I'm talking Raven Simone. Even she couldn't see it coming on Disney Channel, coach. You feel it, dig me? But the way they talk about it is Disney Plus. Understand that. I got to do it at least once with Dougy here. But with that said, week 4 of this game, y'all have it set up to where Todd is likely to go home. And if not Todd, maybe even Bailey. You made a grandiose gesture. You basically could choose who you want to get this veto, Spicy or Kayla. You basically said, I don't want it to be Kayla, so I want it to be Spicy. I don't remember Spicy at any moment going out of her way in front of the entire house to show allegiance to you like you were willing to do during the executive veto week. Can you speak to that?
So it was actually Avery that I had a choice to
Oh, it was Avery. Sorry.
between. And the way I was looking at it was, this is going to be a great opportunity for me mentally, because I'm going to give it to Spicy. She is going to see that I chose her once again, but also I'm going to give her an opportunity to show her loyalty. I'm going to give her an opportunity to make a decision. And that decision was, am I really final two with Dougie? Is that really my number one? Are we really playing this game together? Or am I here for myself? Which is totally understandable. Everybody has a choice.
Absolutely.
So, I gave it to her. The original plan was to use the veto on Tola, which she had promised him, because like I said, I built her relationship with Tola. Victoria wasn't talking to Tola.
Oh, week 1 of the game, she disrespected him so much during that first HOH comp, bro.
That was
Like,
crazy.
it was excessive. Like, it was borderline obsessive.
It was
Like, I'm
worse
like,
than what I did to Donna. It was worse
right.
than what I did to Donna.
I mean, what you were doing, that was like harmless flirting to a degree.
Yeah.
But even then, that was designed to not make her look at you as a threat to her. Like,
Yeah.
oh, look at this. This guy, I got him wrapped around my finger. He won't come after me. Like, even that was strategy. That was
Yeah.
positioning. That was
Yeah.
posturing.
Yeah.
Right. But on Spicy's end, it's very erratic, very emotional, going out of her way to show the women I'm willing to disrespect a man, and I don't care if I do it in front of the whole house or not.
Yeah.
But in any season of Big Brother, if we just remove our own biases, that is poor gameplay.
Yeah.
You don't show a whole house of men week 1 of the game that you're unwilling to work with any of them that soon. You at least should position yourself to be Switzerland, willing to work with anyone. And I think the Directors Alliance, in theory, was meant to serve that purpose because she was threatened by Matt. She wanted to have some type of avenue to information from him. And she started growing more and more paranoid because Matt wasn't running information to her enough. Lexus wasn't running information to her enough. But at the end of the day, Matt's not winning any HOHs. He's not winning any vetoes. What information would he know that you don't already know when all your friends have all the power, Spicy? That's the thing that never made sense to me. And that's why it's clearly, the undertone of it is clearly all about her own jealousy of Lexus being able to play a game similar to LaToya. Because if we go back, Spicy had the same issue with LaToya. LaToya is close to Ty and Jed. I can't penetrate that relationship, so I'm going to target you because I want to give these brothers no other sister to work with but me, and hopefully they capitulate to do that. Now, Ty and Jed didn't. They took her out the first chance they got as soon as jury started. But with that said, I view you and Matt as this season's Ty and Jed in a sense. She wanted to be closer to y'all. Bailey, in a sense, wanted to be closer to y'all. I think Avery was close to Matt, but I always felt like she wanted to also be closer to you. And I believe because certain women felt like Lexus has it easy, which is never the truth because the way they mistreated her. I mean, if we're going to really be honest and create parallels, Lexus is probably the one lady in Big Brother Canada history that had an experience similar to Taylor. The only difference is, and I mean Taylor Hale, winner of BB24. But the thing that's interesting to me is the narrative about Lexus isn't as strong. And that's very problematic for me because for sisters to be willing to treat her that way, when up until this point, Lexus did nothing wrong towards anyone, right? Lexus was devout hot chocolate. Meanwhile, these ladies were in Big Sister. You know, early on in the game when Janine was around, it was Janine, Avery, Spicy, and it was Bailey. Big Sister. They left Kayla, they left Lexus, and they left Donna on the outskirts because they didn't want to trust them because they were attractive women. So they viewed them off first impression alone. They judged them based off of, oh, men are going to want to work with them because they're pretty. So let's keep them on the outskirts of this onion. Then when Janine leaves, all of a sudden now Bailey's like, oh, I'm willing to work with Kayla. Oh, Donna's my best friend. It's like, wait a minute. I thought Janine was your best friend, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
see, that's my issue, right? People don't really tell the truth. So
Yeah.
the executive veto happens. Vivek leaves the game. Tough moment. We wake it in week 5. Now all of a sudden it becomes, we gotta get out Matt. We gotta get out Matt. Well, actually, I think Goose may have won an HOH first here. Am I wrong? Did Goose win an HOH before this? Oh, no.
Uh,
Goose was the executive veto week, and he was
right.
stripped of his power. See,
Right.
Goose was going to do the right thing, and they stripped. Yeah. They did him
He
dirty.
was. He
So,
was.
so essentially, the week after that, Avery wins an HOH. Congratulations to her. But we all know she's Spicy Junior. She might as well have a meal at Wendy's. So at this point, we know Avery is going to do whatever Spicy wants. Spicy is threatened by Matt. The week before, the executive veto week, it was Goose who went out of his way to tell Matt, hey, you know they tried to get me to backdoor you, bro. Matt decided to forgive Spicy despite all of the dirt she threw on his name. I remember the moment that turned Kayla against Matt. It was Spicy's fault because everyone, it was you. You were the one who told Spicy, oh, Matt, he really likes Kayla. He can trust her. He does trust her. She decides to go to Kayla and say, oh, well, Dougie just told me Matt doesn't trust you. And instead of Kayla thinking herself, now, why would Dougie throw Matt under the bus to Spicy? That does not make much sense for Dougie's game. A lot of these players decided to just go along with whatever Spicy's narrative was.
Yeah.
And that is the part that's really disappointing for me, right? So when week 5 comes around in Avery's HOH, she claims Matt is her best friend. Can you speak to this week? Because this was, in my opinion, the week that truly changed the way you viewed Spicy's game for the
Yeah.
rest of the season.
So, like I said, I really developed Matt and Victoria's relationship to the point where we had a final 4. Me, Lex, Matt, and Spicy. When I realized Matt was in trouble, I decided to make that alliance and further, give Victoria confidence that Matt was willing to work with her and go the whole 9. In knowing this, Victoria still targeted Matt. So for me, it was like I always knew that Victoria was the leader. I could see with my own eyes. Avery had said at least once every 3 days that Victoria is my favorite player. I love her so much. We're going to be the best friends after. Wait till my family sees that. I can't believe my family's watching me play with Spicy. Just obsessed with her. And also had a great relationship with Matt. So when I started to when I started to hear the conversations of the girls saying, well, we don't fully trust Matt, I was looking at it like, well, where's the root? Right? Who it can't be Avery. Avery had a showman's name with him called Maves. They had a handshake. They spent a lot of time together. So it couldn't have been Avery. I had a conversation with Kayla where Kayla was like, I feel good with Matt because we had a party where they didn't feel the best with each other. And then they spent an hour during that party, which it doesn't show everything. But they spent an hour together crying in the corner of the backyard, apologizing to each other, telling each other that, they want to work with each other, they want to go far with each other. It was a huge thing. Everybody had seen it, and it looked like they were having a good relationship. So the next day, I had another conversation with Kayla, and she was just like, look, the girls really want Matt out. And, I want to hear your pros and cons with the situation. I was like, well, first and foremost, weren't you just crying with Matt, telling him that you really care? Doesn't Avery have a secret handshake and an alliance name with him? I already spoke to Victoria. Spicy had swore on her boyfriend's life, her mom's life, her dog's life, everything underneath the sun, that we have. Not only is she voting to keep Matt, but we have the numbers and to not worry. So I said, you know what? She just swore on everything. I trust her. I'll let you hold that. Right.
So you were willing to overlook the fact that she pulled a fast one during the executive veto. You
Yep.
gave her a second chance. That needs to be stated for the casual
Second
fan.
chance.
Yes, sir.
Now, when Kayla pulled me into the room, she's like, look, the girls are, they want Matt out, but I want to hear your take on the pros and cons of keeping him. I said, well, no problem. It's called logic, right? I gave her logic. I explained to her the pros. I explained to her the cons. She was like, to be honest, I agree with you. I think Matt should stay, but can you explain this to Spicy? And I was like, well, sure, no problem. But I already talked to Spicy. She's on board to keep him. Kayla looked at me and she's like, no, she's not. Can I go get her right now? I was like, this is beautiful. Go get her.
Mhm.
Spicy
That's when
comes
you
in the
all met
room.
in the HOH.
Yep. No, we met in the red room at this time. We met in the red room.
Okay. Yeah.
Comes into the red room and she sits down and she's like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, nothing. I was just having a great conversation with Kayla. We were talking about the pros and cons of Matt. I know me and you had just spoken 2 hours ago on the yellow couches. You remember, right below the stairs.
Yes,
And you had told me that you wanted Matt to stay, and we talked about the reasons. And so now I'm just explaining that to Kayla, so it makes sense to her, and trying to figure out like what the real issue is. And she's like, well, I think the girls just, really feel threatened by him, and like I don't have a good relationship with him. And I was like, well, hold on one second, because we just spoke 2 hours ago, and you swore on everything that you were going to keep him, right? And then Kayla's like, swore on everything, right? And I was like, no, this is perfect. Let's throw Spicy under, right? You swore on everything that you were going to keep Matt and that you wanted him to stay. This is not the energy that you had 2 hours ago. She's like, I know, but we had a conversation. I had a conversation with the girls, and we all just feel like whatever. And I was like, well, Kayla came and just talked to me and told me that she actually agrees with me and wanted to go grab you because you didn't agree. So what's the truth here, Spicy? And that's when she just blew up her own game. Right then and there. Right then and there is when it was all over for me.
And that's why she was so angry, because the fact that Kayla was willing to hear you all out and not just be hive minded like Avery was.
Yeah.
That's what, because I remember Spicy was talking to Bailey when y'all were up in the HOH without Spicy and Bailey. Bailey sent her like an errand girl, go up there and basically run interference. And then when she goes in there, she says, "Oh, us as girls decided." But Spicy, Avery does whatever you say. She's the HOH and she backdoored Matt. So stop saying this is what the girls decided. It's what you decided.
Yep.
Kayla is highly malleable, highly paranoid. And to be honest, it always felt like Kayla never felt like she belonged to directors. It always felt like she was on the outside of hot chocolate. It always felt like she was on the outside of the girls thing. And I think that's what brought her closer to a player like Goose, because she almost looked at Goose as the other player on the outskirts of every other thing going on. But it's the idea that Dougy's game was so impactful. He was able to convince Kayla to vote out Goose over Matt, when I can argue she was closer to Goose than Matt.
Yeah.
So the thing is, people don't understand how difficult it was for you to get the ball rolling down these paths, just for people to create these roadblocks for you. And these roadblocks, they can't even create a good alibi as to why they're creating them. Then they wonder why you deposit the memory, and then when you have your next chance to turn on them, you do. It's because a smart player doesn't let you know how angry they are in the moment. A smart player,
shit, my boy.
a smart player rolls with the punches. Shoot, Victoria can learn a lot from that. because a lot of her biggest issues in both of her seasons was that she didn't know how to roll with the punches. Once one thing doesn't go her way, she loses her head. Head's gone. You can't beat, and that's why I like to compare this to a sport. You know, we've seen plenty of great athletes over the past face adversity. What makes the greatest is that when they go down 20, they still believe they can come back and go on a 21-0 run.
Yes, sir.
That's what makes you great. Dougy was down 3-1 in this game, came back. Spicy, she had 7 allies on day one. She blew a 3-1 lead. How about that? But everyone wants to talk about it as if somehow she's had the hardest game to play. Literally, she did you wrong with the executive veto. Then she does you wrong by lying to you, Tola, and Lexus by not voting to keep Matt. So now that's 2 strikes. You weren't going to let her get to the third, but let's be real. The third was the Tola thing.
Yeah.
But we'll get there, don't worry. So Matt, he ends up getting voted out. Spicy pulls a fast one. She tries to blame all of the things that happen on all the girls then, but then later on, during Final 5, she all of a sudden blames it all on Kayla. Very interesting how the culprit tends to change like musical chairs, right?
Yes,
so then we
sir.
make it to the movie night massacre week. One of the better twists I've ever seen, very innovative. Now, I would have wanted the comp itself to be a little bit more interesting. I mean, y'all just holding up a pot in a room that stinks. I don't know if that was the best idea, but I'm not going to nitpick. Everything else outside of that was sensational. And production, y'all should take a bow. Arissa Cox, you should take a bow, right? Everything about that twist was fantastic. Now, during this twist, this is when Todd made Spicy look foolish. But once again, no one wants to talk about this. She did everything she could to keep Todd in this game, believing he was a woman. This is what was said. Maybe you didn't see these episodes yet or these digital dailies yet, but Spicy was talking as if Todd was a woman just because at the time he was aligned to them. Then Todd and Tola come together and pull a fast one on the women, literally as soon as jury starts to set up Kayla on the block next to Avery. And Spicy never holds accountable Todd for that fast one. She only blames Tola for it. And that is another thing I don't like. Tola ain't the one coming up with this idea. It's clearly Todd. Todd is the one that knows for a fact y'all will always blame Tola, and that's why he ran to Tola to come up with the plan. The way they allowed Bailey and Todd to get away with a lot of slick stuff they did towards all them girls, it's honestly kind of repulsive. But with that said, the movie night massacre happens. Bailey, congratulations to her. She wins it. She chooses Spicy as the HOH of the week. Spicy, knowing she's done you wrong, chooses you for the slot pass for the rest of the season, which to me was her trying to offset some stuff she knew she did, right? Because let's be real, if she was loyal to you up to that point, she has no reason to just hand you the slot pass. That was built off a guilty conscience, right? So you get the slot pass. 2 sisters are on the block, Todd and Tola. Kayla pulls off a fantastic veto win that she needed the most because they were setting her up. The way Kayla never realized that them girls were prepared to let her go first in jury, the way she just acts as if they had her back, it's like, are you kidding me, coach? Literally, they didn't. Todd didn't have your back. Bailey didn't have your back. Spicy didn't have your back. Avery didn't have your back. All of them were mad at you, Kayla, because you were willing to keep Matt the week before. But none of them are going to keep it real with you, right? And so for me to see Kayla all yucking it up, schmucking it up with them in the jury, it's like, oh, she's so in the dark. Get her, come on, man, get her a flashlight. But with that said, so the movie night massacre happens. 2 sisters on the block, Kayla wins veto, Goose gets thrown up, and Goose goes home in that moment. You showcase your allegiance to hot chocolate there. Because let's be real here. If all the men really wanted to get even, they vote Avery out right there. She's a much bigger threat than Goose.
They literally asked me, Doug, what are we doing? And I was like, okay, well, I could send out Spicy Jr. right now. I could. But what does that look like for my relationship with the rest of the girls? What does that look like to hot chocolate? I still believe that hot chocolate can work. I know that Lex has some serious resentment, but I'm going to call it on this one. We keep her. We vote to send home Goose. Goose goes home 6-0, right? So it was, afterwards I was still thinking like, should I have done it? I wasn't questioning myself because I didn't want to go. I didn't know enough about Avery. I know what I could see,
Mhm.
but there were things that I didn't know, and I wasn't super confident on, to the point where I was like, no, this is the time to let Avery go.
And I know for a
So
fact you wanted to avenge Matt there, because it
yeah,
wasn't Goose's fault why Matt left, but it's
right,
the idea that you saw what was best for the collective. And I really want to drive this point home because people want the narrative to be you always were against hot chocolate. No, you weren't. Because
no,
the minute they blew up directors, they blew up hot chocolate.
yep,
Directors was designed to cover hot chocolate. It
yep,
had two men within it that had no incentive to target any member of hot chocolate. It
yep,
was designed to guarantee. It was basically the Savage 7 from BBCAN12 that would have worked. And for some reason, these ladies didn't want to do it. But we know the real reason why they didn't want to do it, because Lexus were closer to the men in that group than they were. That's
yep,
why they tried to align with Goose during his HOH week to pull him over. So in
yep,
the case that the 7 ended up being final 7, they had a 5 to go against your, basically, well, no, a 4 to go against your 3. That's
yep,
basically what it was all built to do.
yep.
Now, they end up getting rid of Goose, of course, in week 6. So then we move on over to week 7. Now, this is post movie night massacre, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the week in which all things got really interesting because Avery wins another HOH. Now, she was just on the block. I don't knock her for feeling like she needs to win again, but in my honest opinion, her winning again so soon is what got her taken out right after.
Right
She
after.
she wins the HOH, and once again, she decides not to play her own game. She wants to play Spicy's. She nominates who she nominates. I believe it was Tola and Todd initially, and
Yep,
when one of them came off, then the narrative, or one of them won veto. Pardon me, I believe
Tola.
it was Tola because they
Yep,
really wanted Tola gone at that point. So
yep,
if Todd would have won it, it wouldn't have mattered who replaced who because they still would have taken out Tola there. The fact that
yep,
Tola came off is why they wanted so badly to throw up you or Lexus. Avery held a grudge with you for using her as a pawn during week 1, even though you had no choice because the end of the day, you wasn't going to throw up a guy and be Boo Boo the Fool because they would vote out the guy.
yep,
So it was nothing malicious in the intent of using her as a pawn. And when she claims to be a super fan, she should at least understand what a pawn's job is. Oh, well, pawns do go home, but you didn't, so let it go. So she wins her second HOH. And of course, Tola comes off the block. But now the question is, who's going to replace, right? Now,
Sorry, actually,
Kayla,
no. That week Bailey won off the grid on day 45.
okay,
Bailey won that off the grid one. She was the one who took Todd
Todd
down.
off. Todd off. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So at that point, they could have taken out Tola and used someone else as a pawn. But at this point, we're running out of different pawns to use. They were never going to risk one of themselves. And we know Spicy was never going to be thrown up by an Avery.
yeah.
So they're like, who do we throw up, ladies and gentlemen? Do we throw up Lexus or Dougy? Now, it took great gameplay, and I would love for you to expound on this because this ended up being what Kayla held a grudge with you about. But if it's me or you, I'm choosing myself every time. You should
Right.
be mad at the HOH who actually allowed me to whisper in their ear sweet nothings and do what I want. Now, so Avery decides to throw up Kayla. Can you please break down the magnificent gameplay of you and Lexus? Because y'all had a small amount of time to
Yeah,
figure out what narrative to push, and y'all
yeah.
pushed it together. Man, it looked like Macho Man Randy Savage and Elizabeth or something. It was incredible. Please break it for me.
So the night before that veto competition, I had a conversation with Spicy and Bailey. At the time, I was working with both of them separately, but never together. We never had a three-way conversation about working together up until this point. We sat in the room. They both said they really want to work with me. Spicy was very um, dominant in that conversation, doing most of the talking, and basically saying, "Look, Dougie, we want to work together with you. I know you have a good relationship with Bailey. You're probably not going to like it, but yeah, we're thinking there's a target that needs to go that isn't really doing anything." And I knew who they were thinking right off the bat. And I was like, okay, well, I know they're talking about Lex. This is a huge problem for me. But at the end of the day, nothing can happen until we see what happens with the veto. So I just went with their narrative and I was like, oh, of course, there's always a target. And we can definitely work together. You guys know I feel good with both of you guys. I decided to be patient with it. The next day, Bailey wins. We celebrate, right? And then Bailey comes in, asks me to talk, and she's like, so right before the competition act, the POV actually, they end up putting all the house guests together and told me and Spicy we had to sit in the HOH room while the other house guests got ready, and then we would meet them in the backyard. So I was like, this is perfect. Now I have the opportunity to really pick Spicy's brain. I don't get too much time with her during the day. So we sat there, and she drops the ball that she wants to target Lex. Right off the bat, I always got a card in my back pocket. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay,
Absolutely. You're the
now she's
gambit of this
now
thing.
she's said the name. Now she said the name. Now I know that this is not just a conversation she had with Bailey. This is a conversation she had with all the girls and whoever else they were connected to. So I'm like, I gotta work fast here. We're gonna be getting called into the backyard to watch this competition any second. So I'm gonna give Spicy exactly what she wants, and that's something to really drive her irrational, erratic behavior. Spicy is the type of player that if she hears somebody is coming after her, she will literally lose her mind. There's no being patient and holding on to receipts and putting cards in the back pocket. She will walk out of the room and she will seek justice. So
Absolutely.
I gave her the seed, which happened to be an entire tree, by the way,
Magnolia.
and she went with it. At that point, I knew this was just a light alley oop, and she was gonna 360 windmill through the paint.
Blake
Uh,
Griffin.
to get Kayla out. Once I saw that she was biting on it as hard as she was in the HOH room, I knew it was a sealed deal. But the thing is Spicy is a very flip flop player. She could have a conversation with somebody, think one way, have another conversation with somebody, think another way, a third conversation with a third person, not even involved, and think another way. So after that POV, Bailey wins. And I was like, okay, Bailey wins. Now there's an opportunity here where I know that I can save Tola. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to give this information to Bailey, but in a very subtle way, because Bailey is very Hulkamania. Like when Bailey is not hearing something she wants to hear, she gets loud, she gets angry, she gets
Confrontational.
feisty, very confrontational. Which I love, by the way, because I'm also very confrontational.
But do you
Um,
think it's a double standard the way none of that hurt her jury
of
management? But
course,
it was like
of
almost spoke
course,
of as if that is a positive for a player
of
because they
course.
talk about you as if someone says Dougie's name, they go home. But that's more so a description of Spicy's game. And yet all of them were prepared to hand her the win if she was in final two. And
Yep,
yet that narrative is crafted about you as if you don't deserve to win for that same narrative.
yeah. It's they were very to be honest, the women were very strong together this season. And they also were not super like gamey type players.
Mhm.
They're very emotional, they stuck together, and they just wanted a woman to win, which is
Mhm.
fair. You
That's fine.
know,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
totally fine. That's totally fair. This is the game. These are the cards that I was dealt. I'm gonna make the best of it and do my absolute best. So
Absolutely.
Bailey wins the POV. Bailey sits me down, and Bailey's like, "So, what do you think I should do with the veto?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, at this point we have options, don't we?" She's like, "I knew you were gonna do this. I knew you were gonna do this. Let me guess. You don't want to send Lexi home now." I was like, "Well, I never said that. All I said was we have options." And she's like, "So, what do you want me to do with the veto?" And I'm like, "Well, I think we should all sit down, and we should have a conversation about it, and
What a
see
diplomat.
what's best for the three of our games, right? We just had this conversation with Spicy. So, we got to see what's best for our game." And she's like, so Bailey always had a morning routine. She would always go straight to the backyard, work out, and then she would go to the kitchen and make her eggs before any type of gameplay or anything like that. So while she had left to go do her little workout, I told Lex, I was like, look, because Lex was under the impression that they were going to backdoor Bailey before all this. So I told her, look, the girls are all lying to you. They're trying to backdoor you. We have to go and talk to Spicy, but you can't do it right now because she's really cranky in the morning. Like when I tell you I was really studying these players, every single one, I would sit and just watch. The same thing I did on season 7. I would watch their behavior, how they interact with other people, who they're making coffee for, you know, how,
Little things.
which rooms do they spend the most time in, who else spends the most time in those rooms, just extremely observant. So I knew that Spicy is very confrontational in the morning. So I told Lex, I need you to go up and talk to her, but not just yet. After she gets the alarm from Big Brother that she has to get up, that's when she'll start putting her clothes on. That's when you go in. And this is what you have to say. And I gave her A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Lex is honestly a great player. She literally recited.
Absolutely.
She literally recited everything to a T. While Lex is doing this, I went to Tola and I was like, look, this is what's going on. You're not going home, but I need you to say these things to Spicy after Lex finishes talking to her. And then I need you to go and talk to Avery. After you talk to Avery, Spicy and Avery won't have spoken yet. So then they are going to come together with this newfound information, and this is just going to explode in my favor. And unfortunately, it didn't work out exactly like that, which would have been absolutely magical. But it was still solid. Spicy ended up going to Avery. Avery just ended up listening to exactly what Spicy said. Then Avery went to Tola. Tola kind of slipped up because Tola's like, yeah, I didn't really hear Kayla say too much. And then he came to me in the room and he's like, hey, Avery asked me what Kayla said. I said nothing. I was like, excuse me, sir. I just told you, sir, I just told you to say this. Go back and tell her right now. Tola runs out the room, goes to the HOH,
It's like, oh, I did remember this one thing.
Yeah,
I
he's like,
remember
I
that.
did remember, right? And then Avery's like, perfect. Yeah. Very well done. On my part, that is. So then that was literally how it was executed. And it was just great because Spicy never really cared about anybody else in that situation. She didn't care about Bailey. She didn't care about the fact that Kayla potentially said something about Avery. She didn't care about anything other than you didn't tell me what Goose said when he left.
Absolutely.
And if you even watch the house meeting that we had, Kayla literally, Bailey was like, so you really wanted to backdoor me? You really want to backdoor me? And Kayla was just like, yeah, I did. Avery's like, oh, so you said this? She's like, not really. But it was this like big, Spicy. I'm sorry, Spicy. I'm just so sorry. I wish I hadn't it done this way. But the deal was already sealed because there's no way that Spicy was going to go back on that, even if she wanted to.
And people forget, Dougie, the reason why Kayla even entertained what Goose said to her, it goes back to Spicy's mistakes from a week before. Because when Bailey sent her in the HOH, then Bailey shortly came up there, and that really irritated Kayla. Because in her mind, she's like, why is she in here when we having a hot chocolate meeting? Bailey walks in like, oh, everyone's here.
Yeah.
When whole time everyone wasn't there. Todd and Tola weren't there. Well, we know what Bailey really meant. Everyone is here, as in, why are y'all here without me?
Yep.
Right? And
Yep.
Kayla looked at her funny style, and then by proxy, because of what Goose said, she looked at Spicy more funny style. Because people forget, Spicy and Bailey in that pool hall, in that pool table room, they basically bullied Kayla into submission. They made her not want to keep Matt. They shamed her. They both just went off on her. She couldn't defend herself in that moment.
And I thought floppy and saying, what the fuck is that? And
I thought she would hold on to that. And when Goose told her what he told her, I thought she went with that because she was ready to make a move to be on you and Lexus's side. Because with no Matt, in theory, Kayla's best avenue is with you and Lexus now. Because the other girls are always going to choose each other before her. And the way she never saw that, it always puzzled me. And it always made me feel like, okay, maybe because she's a ladies volleyball coach, maybe she feels like she can never turn on a ladies alliance. I really do believe psychology that may have played a role in why she just decided never to pivot. Because I think she had multiple avenues to pivot. I think she got crossed by Spicy and Bailey, similar to how you got crossed by Spicy a couple of times up until that point. but she just refused to make a move in her own best interest. Then when she gets caught red-handed and admits to saying certain things, she makes it much easier for you and Lexus to box her in. And before you know it, it was a all-out blitz being sent to the quarterback. So all in all, I think Kayla played decently, but I think she did leave something on the cutting room floor. So as
Yeah.
we make it to the next week, Dougie, because now you and Lexus, y'all have made it out of truly the hardest part y'all could really make it out of. An
Yeah.
Avery HOH week with Spicy willing and dealing behind the scenes. Bailey wins a veto, takes off Todd. Tola's there. The way they didn't guarantee Tola or Lexus or Tola or you left, that, in my opinion, was a huge misplay on the Girls Alliance part. You know, the way they was able to eventually still reward Bailey, it really puts paper over the cracks to all of the mistakes they made if they were truly loyal to one another, right? So we get to the week in which Avery leaves, the week where Tola pulls off a fantastic HOH win. In my opinion, this HOH win on Tola's end, it was between him and Todd. This HOH win, to me, I think it certified him as an all-star. Because I remember the certain narratives about Tola. Oh, there you go. I remember certain narratives about Tola that were being said about him early on in the game. And I remember how Tola, he really did a great job. Now, a lot of this was based on your coaching of him, but he did a lot of work to be viewed
Hold
as
on, Coach. The volume. Hold on one second.
Okay. Okay, just a little bit of technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be right back. But please don't forget to smash that like button if you're enjoying this interview, ladies and gentlemen. This is a true Dougie deep dive from a real fan of Dougie's game during both seasons that he played. I understand his game truthfully. Does it sound good?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, we're Gucci. Okay, so Tola pulls off a fantastic HOH victory. An HOH victory a lot of the ladies didn't see coming. A week after being on the block himself, very akin to how Avery won the HOH a week after she was on the block and somehow survived. They decide to take out Kayla, which, in my opinion, got the ball rolling towards bad momentum for Spicy's overall game. Because she loses a soldier in Kayla, but she wanted that to happen. Then she loses a soldier in Avery the week after, because now Avery and Bailey are on the block with one another. The one thing I felt so interesting and compelling about this dynamic is, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't this the week Todd won Veto, but he chose not to use it on Bailey, even though she used Veto on him the week prior?
Yep.
What I found very interesting is how these ladies claim to be loyal to all the women, and yet Bailey never held a grudge with Todd for not reciprocating that same gesture. It's very interesting. And the way none of the ladies thought Bailey was foolish for still trusting Todd, despite him not using Veto on her, was interesting. But that week was very compelling to me because Spicy made, in my honest assessment, one of her biggest mistakes of the season, even though up to this point, we've talked about a lot of mistakes, but her giving the sympathy vote to Spicy Jr. under the facade or excuse that, she's a super fan. I got to give her this sympathy vote because I want her to know everything. I gotta give her this sympathy vote to let her know everything we had was real. When you know she's Spicy Jr., you know if you're in Final Two, she always is gonna vote for you. She's always wanted to see you win this game. That excuse does not check out, Coach. As soon as you try to cash that check in, it's gonna bounce. And it definitely bounced. But with that said, Coach, for her to believe Bailey would be dumb enough to not see through that. Because up until that point, everything Spicy did to cross you was in Bailey's best interest. So Bailey had no reason to question her. But the moment Spicy chose someone that happened to be black over Bailey, Bailey immediately switched up. Can you speak on how just bad it was for Spicy's long-term game to throw Spicy Jr. that sympathy vote?
So when Todd decided not to use the veto, which first of all had a lot to do with Bailey. This was a horrible move on Bailey's part. Bailey was also obsessed with Victoria, and Bailey did not want Todd to use the veto because if he did, Spicy would go up and go home. Literally sacrificed herself on the block. And when I saw that she did that, I knew that it was going to be extremely difficult to break down her mind and turn her against Spicy and have her all to myself. So I said to myself, well, if Todd's not going to use the veto because Bailey's fearful of Spicy going up, then Spicy's going to have to vote to evict somebody. Now, is she going to vote to evict Bailey or vote to evict Avery? So I had a conversation prior to all this, prior to her conversation with Victoria. And I said to her, who do you think Spicy's going to vote out? And she's like, oh, she's going to vote out Avery. I was like, okay. So if she doesn't vote out Avery, will you understand that this girl does not have your best interest? And she's like, if she doesn't, if she doesn't, she's definitely gonna vote out Avery. For me, me and Spicy have been working. That's my number one in the game. She literally said this. I'm really upset that this wasn't on the show, but she literally said that. I was like, okay, so you're again. Let's just confirm. If somebody doesn't vote for you to stay, then you're willing to admit that they do not have your best interest. She said yes. I said perfect. Conversation over. Spicy, I think a day later, goes up to Bale and she's like, yeah, so I'm thinking of throwing Avery a sympathy vote just because, she's a super fan. And Bailey right away was just like, I can't believe this. How is this happening? Maybe Spicy doesn't have my best interest. Maybe Avery was her number one. And Bailey told her straight up, I don't feel good about that. This was actually on the episode. I don't feel good about that. You're not just voting for a sympathy vote, you're voting to evict me. I vote to evict Bailey. So when she did that, I literally I knew that it was going to happen, but I had asked her right before the noms, do you think Victoria is going to vote to evict Avery, or what do you think? And she's like, I don't think she's going to vote to evict me. I told her I was not okay with it. I would definitely be really surprised if she did. So they call us to the living room for the ceremony, and Victoria says in front of everybody, Tola was sitting right beside her. She goes to Tola. She's like, I'm thinking of throwing a sympathy vote to Avery. Would you be mad? She says this to Tola. Tola looks at her like, do its best for your game, right? Victoria votes to evict Bailey. Now, if you watch Bailey's face, because I was watching Bailey's face the entire time, it was beautiful. And she was furious that the comment in the DR was, I vote to evict Bailey. So at that point, I knew I had the repertoire to break Bailey's mind down and eventually turn her completely against her number one ally.
And this was truly the beginning of your final five mastermind move, right? Because you began to sow those seeds of distrust. But to be honest, Spicy made it easy for you. And the way there was no accountability on her end for doing what she did to make Bailey not want to vote for her to stay. Bailey and Todd could have easily repaid her for all of the times that she carried them throughout the game. They didn't, because they saw what was best for their game along with you. The idea, we'll get there, but the idea that she believes that somehow all is your fault, when at the end of the day, if she just votes with the rest of the house to take out Avery, I can create the argument your job is a lot harder in getting around Final Five, because Bailey probably at least forces a tie. But we all know Todd was going to do what Bailey wanted, similar to how Spicy Jr. was going to do what Spicy wanted. So it would have been 2-0 either direction. It's just the idea that she thought you should take out Bailey because she carried her that far, and you should split up her and Todd. And that's another issue I really have. The narrative that you should have taken out Bailey because her and Todd cuddle at night. And yet Spicy had the nerve to disrespect Lexus by saying the whole game, all she's done is cuddle with Matt and Dougy. It's like, wait a minute. So are you creating an argument that a black woman can't play a certain type of game, but if Bailey plays it, she's a perfect representation of what it means to play Big Brother?
Yeah.
See, Spicy doesn't understand. Because of her history during BBCAN12 of targeting LaToya, she doesn't have the amount of rope she thinks she does. I truly believe she thought because of the lack of live feeds, She thought she could get away with saying things and there wouldn't be enough evidence on those digital dailies to expose her as a hypocrite.
Yes, sir.
So now we push over to the double eviction because that basically was Avery went home and then they got out Tola later on that evening. But it was Spicy who told you all that she wouldn't do Tola that way. It was
Mm.
Spicy who told you all she would take out Todd at that moment. She promised Lexus would never touch the block. Can you speak to how this was another mistake Spicy made, which just further buried her in her own grave?
So at this point, I had a lot of receipts on Spicy at this point. And I could see that as she was losing her numbers, now came the Dougie, I got you on an everyday basis, multiple times, almost every single time I spoke to her. Dougie, I got you. We're almost there. Where these conversations were not happening earlier on in the game, and she was trying to sewer the greatest of all time, if you will. So when this situation happened, because the whole week, right? This is the week where she's like, she made up the lie right before the veto. It's like Todd said that he's your target. He thinks you're trying to pin the girls against each other. He says he's gonna target you next week. Then she goes to Todd and she's like, I just talked to Dougie. Him and the boys, which there was only Tola, are gonna target you. So you need to be careful, right? Trying to pin us against each other and do what she had been doing the entire game. So for me, and Lex, it was like, okay, you just won. This is your last opportunity to show any type of loyalty.
Absolutely.
Any type of loyalty. You have been talking, like every second that I spoke to her, it was about Todd having to go. Todd having to go, Todd having to go, Todd having to go, Todd having to go. She hates him. She can't stand him. She doesn't want to be in the same room with him.
Allegedly.
She just wants to sit in the green room all day. She doesn't want, everything he does annoys her. Why is he just starting to play the game now? Blah, 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 blah. Right? She wins, and now it's like, Tola's got to go. And I know that at that point, if I had really fought, I would have went up on the block because Spicy
Absolutely.
had zero loyalty to me. As much as she says it in the DRs or her interviews, brainwashing herself into thinking that she was with me to the end. She probably would have put me up on the block if I had fought there for Tola, right? Because she wouldn't have wanted to break poor Bailey's heart and put up Todd and send Todd home. That would just hurt Bailey's feelings, right? So she decided to send home Tola. And not only send home Tola, but also put Lex on the block, right? So I was like, that's it. That is absolutely it. And as soon as I won that double eviction HOH, I literally, as soon as they said that number, and I knew that I was 2 minutes off, I knew that I could finally rest and watch the sun rise over a grateful universe. It was a wrap. In my mind, as soon as they said that number, I knew exactly who was going home. I knew exactly how I was going to do it, and I knew exactly what I was going to say to each person to turn them against her in a matter of seconds.
And I got to give you credit, Dougie. I mean, the gamesmanship, the entertainment value. I mean, you're a 5-tool player in baseball. The way you took Spicy to Wendy's to have the Last Supper was some of the funniest things I've ever seen. She was eating that food believing he ain't going to turn on me. Then the next day she says, all week I thought Dougie would turn on me. Nah, when y'all was eating at Wendy's, by the way, shout outs to your lovely mother. Happy belated Mother's Day tour. It was great seeing her in that Wendy's segment. That must be said.
Thank you,
But
brother.
definitely, bro. Definitely. But, the way Spicy, the way she tries to act like after the fact she saw everything coming, like that's revisionist historianism. Like the truth is, you didn't see a lot of these things coming. And that's why you were so flustered when they happen. If I think it's going to rain today, I'm not going to curse at the sky when it rains, right? I'm going to go, oh, I saw this coming. Good game, good play, right? But the fact is, she thought you wouldn't be smart enough to see that this entire game, she was trying to weaken you and try to guilt shame you down the path of, I don't have to be pro-black, but you do, Dougie.
Yeah.
And I think that's so unfair. The way people hold brothers to a standard that they don't hold themselves to. Are
Yeah.
we here to play a game or not? right? They try to turn this game into something it isn't supposed to be at all times. And while I
I'm gonna
am
take a shot at 1942 for that one, Coach.
I'm saying, coach. And at the end of the day, you are someone who played in the real Stone Age. Spicy cannot relate. She got to play on her first season with 4 other black people, coach. You would have loved to have that your first season. You over here thinking,
don't get me tying jet.
You like a hooper from the 80s that get to see people play now and there's no hard fouls. And you're like, man, these players today soft. This is hard to y'all? Man, please, I had to worry about getting Kurt Rambis into the dang stands back in my era. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Facts.
You played with real savages.
Facts, bro.
And Pretty Boys was a lot smarter, and they knew how to cover up their bases. So where people couldn't just assume you all were together. Whereas the Ladies Alliance this season were obvious from start to finish because they were arrogant in the way that they played, right? People say the Pretty Boys were so arrogant, but there requires a certain level of humility in being able to minimize how close you are together, right? That's a certain level of respecting my opponent, because I'm assuming my opponent is smart enough to see through it if I'm around my teammates too much. Whereas it felt like this season, a lot of these ladies thought 14-player season, 2 less people than usual, plus we have all of these proud feminists. Yeah, we got this in the bag. So why should we care about really establishing or cultivating a relationship with men? Meanwhile, you're the guy who established more relationships with women than any lady on this cast, not named Lexus, established with guys. But the narrative continuously is you somehow can't work with ladies. And that's what I love about this season, Dougie. You debunked a lot of narratives about your first season, and you proved you were capable of playing a different way your second season, and you got the same result in making finale night twice. You're the first ever Canadian Big Brother player to be able to say that. That's why you're the GOAT to me, coach, because at the end of the day, you overcame the Stone Age to make finale night. Then when things were advantageous for people of our ilk, you still found a way there when you didn't have really anything in your back pocket at the start of this game. You had to get it out the mud. So when I see people mud slinging, that's clearly bitterness. But so you backdoor Spicy, right? In my honest assessment, this was one of the best well-crafted plays I've ever seen. You keeping Bailey off the block so she is okay with working with you towards this decision. Now, I'm going to be honest. I did think it was a bit risky to throw up Lexus initially. I was very concerned that if Bailey or Spicy win that veto, Lexus is gone. And then in that dynamic, you're in Final Four, 3v1. Now, maybe you wouldn't have had the opportunity to backstab Spicy yet, but I still believe it would have been a 3v1 because Spicy didn't have your best interest anyway. So that's what I was concerned with. But then when you were able to get your way, Todd wins another veto in a row. You throw up Spicy. Now, I would love to speak to this. Spicy did no real campaign work. She just kept moaning and whinging towards you. At the end of the day, outing Hot Chocolate to Bailey, all that did was further tell Bailey why you need to go, because you were the one who chose Avery over Bailey with the sympathy vote. I don't get why Spicy didn't see that, right? So in your assessment, like, we all know she didn't carry herself with class. We all know what she did in that HOH room. It's not even worth really entertaining or sensationalizing, right? But with that said, what I feel very disgusted by is the fact that she embarrassed sisters in that moment. If she's not going to act that way towards Bailey and Todd when they vote her out, don't act that way towards your brother. At the end of the day, coach, there's a way to handle things. And the way she handled herself in that moment was very unbecoming of an all-star. I don't care if she comes in the room and sweeps up the glass. That was a bad moment. And she tried to leave the room and imply you broke it initially. Then she finally owned up that it was her. And then that's what made everyone go, she kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah. So can you please, from your perspective, you tried to explain to Spicy your reasoning. You tried to really get down to the brass tacks. And every time I felt as if you ended the conversation on a good note and tried to let things kind of cool off, she kept following you to provoke you more. Did you feel like in that moment she was trying to further ruin your chances of winning the game by getting you to act out of character like she was doing?
So for me personally, Me. I could never play the game like Spicy,
Absolutely.
and we all know that Spicy can never play the game like me. Um,
That goes without being said, Coach.
I'm a totally different tier of player. Spicy is on the show for chaos, right? For television, right? And although I do think she made some good moves, I feel like
Absolutely.
she really wanted to uphold this Spicy V personality.
Mhm.
So when I was telling her about the reasons why, because I had many reasons why, I also wanted to include that, Victoria, if I take you to the end, you're going to beat me because you lied to everybody seconds before they left the door. So they think that you had their back. On top of that, you've been sewering my game this entire thing. But I didn't start with, you're good. I feel like you would beat me. I said, well, let's start at the beginning, right? You'll remember all these things.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the executive veto. Let's start with the math situation. Then let's move on to this. Was going through everything, and she just would lie. I never did that.
Blame it
No,
on
I
someone
didn't.
else.
Right? She lied, lied, lied. She swore on everything again, like she had been doing all season, on her mother's life, on her boyfriend, on her dog Astro, on everything underneath the sun, that she never did these things. And then all of a sudden she goes, okay, you know what, Dougie? You're right. I'm sorry. I did do those things. But I'm still here. And we can still change this and go to the end together. Dougie, I'm sorry, but we can still go to the end together. I promise you, I'll never do any of those things again. I said, Spicy, pack your bags.
And see, this is the funniest part. When Kayla admitted to what she did that was wronging Spicy, but still wanted to move forward with her, she wasn't willing to hear her out. But all of a
Right.
sudden, Dougie should be the person that she wasn't willing to be towards Kayla.
Like
So,
there was just so many instances where this girl was like proactively trying to sewer my game, keeping people in the game, and make trying to make them go after me should they have gotten in power. And if they had gotten into power, even though I don't think they would have had the votes, she would have been really pushy to put me on that block to take away my record, which still stands, by the way, of never being nominated.
yes,
Never being
Final
nominated
Four doesn't count for me either.
doesn't
Mm-mm,
count. It doesn't
mm-mm.
count.
That's not
So
someone going out of their way to say, I'm nominating Dougie. No, 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 no. No, no, no,
so
no, no.
so for me, I played sports my entire life, high level sports. I look at sports in two different areas: sportsmanship, number
Mhm,
one; showmanship, number two. Right?
mhm.
When I'm on TV, I make sure to do TV. You're gonna get the monologues. You're gonna get the bars. Right? But I'm
Absolutely.
also more than willing to tip my hat to a winner. If somebody, yeah, you saw the raise, you saw the razor remote, right? I was going crazy in
I
there,
was
coach.
shocked more people didn't notice the promo
I was
game. I'm
going
like,
crazy in
he,
there, coach.
when you won that HOH, you was downstairs, you was cooking something
Cook it,
serious.
broski.
Someone cooked here.
But like, it's just crazy because if I'm being honest here, I feel like if I were white and I were doing these things, I would be praised. But
Absolutely.
people unconsciously and subconsciously don't understand that they just don't like black people, especially ones that get cocky when they're doing things. When you watch LeBron hit shots, when you watch Steph Curry hit shots, when you watch Shy hit game winners, you think these guys just sit down and put their tail between their legs and say, wow, I just can't believe I did this. No, they look into the crowd, they stare into their opponent's face, but at the end of the game, no matter what, they shake
Mhm.
hands, right? It's
Absolutely.
showmanship and sportsmanship. So when I'm looking at Spicy, I'm looking at, I beat you to the punch. You've been coming after me all game. I beat you. You got to tip your hat to me, right? And
Absolutely.
it just
Especially
wasn't there.
understanding that you had a bigger target than her on day one. For
Way
you to
bigger.
be where you were. Now, sure, she can create the argument to an extent. Hot chocolate may have helped your game in a sense.
Of
But
course.
but ever since, in my honest assessment, Matt left, no one had your best interest but Lexus and Tola. And even
Nobody.
up to a certain point, Tola was eventually swindled against you in the Jerry house. But while
Yep.
he was in that game, he had your back for sure. You know,
100%.
no one else can claim they were with you the entire stretch of the game except Lexus, Tola, and Matt. No one else can say that. And that is
100%.
why we at Recency Bias Radio respect Matt. I would love to have a conversation with him. Tola, same thing. The way Tola came out, DM'd you, and admitted how the jury was poisoned in a sense, because I recently rewatched some things right before this interview. And it's very interesting when Tola got eliminated in that double, and when Spicy walked in after you took her out, of course, in Final Five, Tola was the main member of the jury, so happy she was out of the game. Then all of a sudden, he's her best friend? No, that's Disney Plus as well.
Yes,
At the
sir.
end of the day, coach, Tola couldn't stand her because he was aware that since week one, she was constantly doing things that weren't sportsmanlike. Bailey did things towards Tola that were unsportsmanlike. You know,
Yep.
the way she labeled him a little man. These are things that come with a lot of loaded context that I won't get too deep into, but
Yes, sir.
but I know what she's really trying to say there. And if you had behaved in that way, there's no way these people would have said you deserve to win and you're this great representative for Big Brother.
Coach,
And
let me
that
ask
is
you.
part of the
Let me
double
ask you
standard.
something right quick. Just
Go
to
ahead,
touch
brother.
on that Spicy situation, because I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead, coach.
That situation, her blow up, her temper tantrum, that was like a 40-minute ordeal that was condensed into just a couple minutes, maybe even 1 minute. That could you imagine? Like, think about this right now, right? Could you imagine if I, as a black man, went into a woman's HOH room on her HOH, screamed at her, broke glass, screamed and ran all over the house? Broski, I would have left the house in cuffs. I might still be in jail.
You would have got Jamar'd. Let's talk about that.
100%.
Jamar gets expelled during BBCAN12 for saying words. She destroys property in your room, and they let her vote on who wins the game. Are you kidding me, coach? And not only that, because that is just obvious stuff, but it's just the idea that Marty, during Big Brother Canada 10, I crack this joke all the time, but I mean it in all sincerity. He created an earthquake in the HOH room so loud the people in the storage room heard it from below. You feel what I'm saying, coach? He won CFP after that moment. No one said anything bad about him. So it just goes to show we are judged on a different plane and we're held to a standard of perfection, all while having the least amount of people actually rooting for us to succeed, which to me, I think is hedging of the highest order to make sure we never get any credit on either end of the spectrum. Right. And this is a big reason why I spoke so highly of you, brother, after BBCAN7, because I knew what was going on, but I knew I was ahead of the curve because up until that point, there was no BLM movement. There wasn't this social economical motion in place to make Black people see things, and not only us, but non-Black people see things, right? Because then there was like this outside pressure for more people to acknowledge what they see. Before then, people acted blind to it, plausible deniability. But that brings us to Final Four, because you make Final Four, and in my honest assessment, everything rode on the veto. And initially, when Lexus didn't win the Final Four HOH, I was nervous. But then I was like, well, Dougy or her can still win veto, and it can still be preserved. Bailey, once again, congratulations to her. She wins Final Four HOH, but if you really look at Bailey's game, she didn't get out a single big target all season. She
Not
wins
one.
the movie. She wins the movie night massacre. That gets out Goose. With no disrespect to Goose, but that's not a resume building move. The one HOH she wins, she tries to pull a fast one on Dougy. Lexus saves the day, and she has to settle for her number one in the game going home. In what world is that a game worth winning on any season of Big Brother if you close your eyes? Like, that's what I want people to understand. If you look at Dougie's stat sheet on paper and you don't know who he is, what he represents, nothing. He's the clear winner. Biases kick in, and then people start sprinkling in what they want to sprinkle in to define you. So in Final Four, Bailey wins the HOH, Lexus wins the veto. One of the happiest moments I can remember my community having, because now we're like, man, Lexus and Dougy, let's go. Split up Todd and Bailey. And I'm one of the people who believe you had to get rid of Spicy before Bailey or Todd, because as long as she was around, Bailey or Todd would never go. Let's be real here. If you had thrown up Bailey, the likelihood that Spicy pulls a fast one on you and takes out Lexus is very high. No one would have said, oh, well, Dougy, he's so loyal to hot chocolate by not throwing up Spicy next to Lexus. No, no, no. They would have remixed it that you're a fool and you got finessed by Spicy by not rightfully getting revenge on her. Only because you were the master of your narrative by once again making finale night do people act like you somehow did someone wrong. So can you speak to Lexus's incomparable veto win in Final Four and how huge that was for both of you, considering what you all went through since Jury began?
So that whole scenario, I had to put a lot of thought into it. I was still trying to win Bailey over, and I even wanted her from Todd. So if I was going to guarantee my spot in Final Two, regardless, which is what I always do, then
Absolutely.
I would have had to really break Bailey's mind down even further. So when I was thinking about who I was going to put up, Todd was a guarantee. But I also needed another. And I was like, okay, I've been playing this entire game with Lexus. Lexus has been listening to me and trusting me to execute plans this entire game. She would have never, ever turned on me. She's a wonderful person. We are very, very locked in
Certified
together.
all-star.
Certified.
Out of any sister that played this season, she's by far and away the best player to me because she didn't make the same mistakes the others did.
I agree.
And she definitely wasn't as well insulated. She had to scratch and claw her way to the end. The rest of them, they was on the easy street. Baywatch, you know what I'm saying?
I agree. So I had to make a decision. And when I originally spoke to Bailey about it, I wanted to basically set her mind up because I knew that if I spoke to Lexus, because of the person Lexus is and because of how much she trusts me, she would have trusted me regardless. But I wanted to open Bailey's mind up first to be like, look, because Bailey came into my room first thing in the morning and was like, so what are you thinking? And I was like, well, I have to look at the players here. And she's like, are you putting me up? And I was like, well, hold on now. Right? Let's talk about this. Because the thing about Bailey's mind is she's very, unless you're saying the things that she wants to hear, it hinders her ability to understand. Right? So I was trying to explain to her that this is what my goal is, right? And this is what needs to happen. So Bailey was like, okay, I'm listening. And finally I was just like, I have to think about it. I am thinking about putting you up, but I really trust you in this game. And I feel like the only way you're going to trust me to go all the way to the end with you is if I keep you off the block. But just know that I'm willing to work with you, right? And I really don't want to hurt your feelings. That was the alley-oop. Okay. So I go talk to Lexus, right? And I'm like, look, Lex, here's the plan, right? Tell me what you think. Are you okay with it? Are you not okay with it? Because if Lexus had said to me, honestly, I'm not okay with it, I would have said, no problem, you're not touching the block. But that's not in Lexus's character. Or else I wouldn't even have this conversation. I was sat down with Bailey the first time and said, I'm putting you up for the optics purposes, but you're not going home because I want to go further. I would have spun it. You know how I do.
Absolutely.
And so Lexus is like, I trust you fully 100%. You've never steered me wrong in this game. If this is what you want me to do and need me to do, I'll do it. I said, okay. I go back to Bailey and I'm like, Bailey, I thought about it. I really thought about it. And I really, really don't want to break your trust. And I really want you to know that I have your best interests, not putting you up. And she was just flabbergasted. The last wall was broken down. The last wall was broken down, had it in the bag. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to Final Two. No matter what happens here. I truly think that even if, regardless of who won that next POV, I was still safe. And then eventually I would have to get to a point where I'd have to win my way to the end, which I had every intention to do. You know, I'm a lot leaner than I was. I'm really good for my days. I was best in the house with my days this season. I went from a rookie recruit, not knowing, I didn't know I had to remember my days till the second week that I was on season 7.
And that's what makes your first season game that much more miraculous. I do not see that many recruits being able to catch on that quickly. The only other player I can think of that was a recruit that caught on so fast was maybe Paul from BBUS, his first time around during 18. He
Yeah.
caught on really quick and eventually figured it out. But of course, he also lost in similar fashion.
Yeah.
But I think he deserved to win that season too. I think if you
Yeah.
really just look at the gameplay of the player, and ironically enough, the reason why he lost was because he had a jury full of women that just wanted to see a woman win as well.
Yeah.
And nothing's wrong with wanting to see someone win you can relate to. I just ask that you can explain how they played a game-winning game.
Yeah.
And the issue is no one can really explain how these games are worth beating the male counterpart. No one can really break that part down. And they act as if you should have just basically done charity work this season. And I crack this joke with Patreon on patrons all the time. I tell them it feels like Dougy is the Cam Newton of this game, where he shows up to give back to the kids, and instead they try to embarrass him and stump him out when he's at the camp. And Dougy got better time, better things going on. He don't got to do this. And when he shows up to do these things, y'all try to use this moment to get over on him. Y'all trying to clout chase off him.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been just as disgusted. And I feel like if you would have had one more brother to play with, that jury would have looked completely different. The reason why they took out Matt when they did is because, number one, they wanted to make sure you had no strong male presence that understood the game as a super fan to defend your game. If Matt was there over a goose, trust me when I say, even with the same amount of women in that jury, it would have been a lot harder for them to get Tola to roll.
Yep.
Because Matt and Tola would have been like, y'all tripping. But
Yep.
see, Tola don't got that relationship with Goose, so he can't really, be in cahoots with the Goose on the idea that they're trying to frame men here, But that's another reason why I appreciate the way you still found a way out of no way. You've shown every future player there is no excuse. You have a shot to make the end no matter what box of chocolates you're given. It's all about whether or not you feel it, dig me, coach. It's all about whether or not you're willing to run like Forrest Gump. That's what it's all about.
That one hit crazy.
Some people don't want to make the run. Some people, they're defeated before they even raise one leg up in the air. You're different. You're built different. And that's why they couldn't really trap you. They couldn't really sabotage you enough to make you spiral enough to make you the easy vote off or the easy nominee. And something needs to be said for your composure level this season. It was, it was borderline Yoda-esque. The goat he is, I think. Like, you were destroying these people. So now we make it to final 3, coach. All right? The moment of truth. You win the final HOH. And I'm going to be honest, initially I was disappointed. But this is your stage to explain your move. And honestly, understanding how much I rate Lexus as a player and how much I view Bailey as not getting out anyone that good, I could see how you could believe it was harder to beat Lexus than Bailey, because starting off this season, everyone claimed they wanted to see a black woman win for the first time, no?
Yes, sir. The whole beginning part of the season, there were conversations, which first of all was horrible gameplay, but understandable on the girls' part. These girls would tell me that there has never been a black woman. There in Final 2, there has never been 2 black women in Final 2. We have an opportunity for a hot chocolate alliance to have something greater here, right? For the culture, right? I was holding on to keywords there, right? The hot chocolate alliance was brought to me after being fully formed already. Fully formed. The name formed, the group formed. Hey, Dougy, we're thinking about adding you to a 4-person alliance with 4 black women called the Hot Chocolate. Are you in? What am I supposed to say? No? Of course I'm in. I would love to be a part of this. But I'd be an idiot to think that you girls didn't have conversations about booting me when the time came.
You were
So
David Ruffin in the Temptations.
So moving throughout the season, right? I thought it was going to take a lot more work to make these girls implode. But I am a master finesser, as the world has seen, and I had to do what I had to do to make them turn on each other, right? But the key word that I held on to the entire season was, it's got to be one of us.
Yes.
One of us,
One of
us in capitals, has to win. If we're
Absolutely.
in jury, one of us has to win. If we make it to finals, one of us has to win. Perfect. So I said, well, I'll just take out all of you because one of us has to win. When I was looking at the optics of, right, because gamers don't understand, right? They
They
don't
don't.
understand. I was, and I knew they weren't super pro black, but I was like, my best shot here is to rely on what they've been saying and preaching, right? I
I
would
mean,
never,
Avery was referring to herself as brown before the season. Then all of a sudden
right?
she's black. I mean, that
Crazy,
should show you right there. The grift is insane. But
crazy.
once again, when the black man
I
somehow
peeped
ends up in
that
final
too.
two, he's the grifter. Nah, let's stop that. You're projecting, coach. We're not
So
at
I,
the movie theater. Let's
so
calm it down.
when I won that final three, which first of all I won the part one HOH as well, by the way, coach.
Hmm.
But when I won final three, it was like, okay, what am I gonna do here, right? How chocolatey are the chocolates,
Because
right?
they said
What?
there were too many marshmallows in the hot chocolate, but then
That's what
they
they said.
wanted,
That's a quote.
but then
That's a
they
quote.
wanted the Lucky Charms to win.
That's what they said. So I was in my mind, I'm like, okay, they want in my mind, this is the truth. I was like, okay, Victoria obviously did not like being evicted. That's okay. But it's the sportsmanship that I thought that was there. I thought that Victoria would be like, man, that damn Dougie, he got me. Really good move because I probably would have came after him, which would have been the truth, right? I would have got somebody else to do it, whatever you want to, whichever way you want to spin it, right? I would have got somebody else to do it. I would have came after him, whatever. And that only, first of all, occurs if she doesn't feel like she'll beat me in final two, right?
Absolutely. But she
So,
knew she would have beaten you in final two anyway because
of
she
course,
stripped you of the votes you could have had by
of
screwing
course,
over Vivek, by
of
screwing
course,
over Matt.
of
Right? It was
course.
all about let's micromanage this. Let's count it. Okay, as long as we have at least 4 women in jury, a man can't win. That's what it
Exactly.
really was about.
Exactly. So I'm like in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I go to finals with Victoria, which I was fully down to do, I saved Dane in season 7 because it was always loyalty over money with Dane. Dane didn't treat me like spicy. Dane
Mm-mm.
wasn't soiling my game and trying to sewer me. We were hustling and finessing under the radar to the point where people, even as they're getting evicted, after 60 days of being around us 24/7 with barely any rooms to go in, you're still shocked and appalled that we are working together. It was magnificent.
Y'all were the ones who saw through Chelsea and Sam that season. And I remember Adam, he didn't really want to let Sam go at the time, but whoever wants to let their showmance go.
Of
But it
course.
was key that y'all took her out so early in jury because the longer you let her stick around, the more it seeps into Adam's mind that he can beat Sam, but he can't beat y'all. Maybe,
Exactly.
just maybe. And y'all were
Exactly.
always the glue of that, you know?
Exactly. So, like I said, I really had to make a decision based off what I thought was going to happen. And I truthfully thought that Victoria was going to hold her head high, even though she didn't leave with her head held high. Like, if that were me, coach, I would have said, I would have, first of all, if I got nominated and I was backdoored and betrayed, I would have said, I would have tried to finesse my way out of it. I never would have
Mhm.
raised my voice. I never would have broken anything. I would have tried to use my words and finesse my way and try to save myself and campaign like a normal Big Brother player,
Like the
right?
game is supposed to be played.
So Victoria leaves, and in my mind, I'm still like, I think she's gonna be upset, but that's okay. Nobody likes to be evicted. I don't know what that feels like, but I can assure you, it probably doesn't feel the best, right? So I'm thinking she's, she's not whatever, but when she gets there and when she sits there for a bit, she's gonna be like, damn, Dougie really crushed this game again. And if he doesn't touch the block again, this guy's got my vote, and he should have all your guys' votes, right? He took out all of us, minus
Yeah.
you, Tola. Minus you, Tola.
With no help from a twist, with
no
no help
help.
from a majority alliance. He was always operating in the minority throughout the game. Like,
So
you're the only one to host a jury roundtable without ever being a member of the jury.
come
Like,
on, my
that in
dog.
itself is just fire, bro.
This week's about to get real spicy.
It is fire, coach.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You feel it?
So I'm like, okay, it's final 3 now. I have the option to do this. I'm gonna see how hot. I'm gonna see how chocolatey the chocolates really are. And I have to make a decision. Now, what hurt me, why I was super upset, is because I betrayed Lexus. That's why I was hurt. Wasn't hurt because I lost. This is a game.
Yeah.
This is a game. Was I upset? Was that the greatest turnout for myself? No. But that's not what hurt me. I was hurt because I betrayed Lexus. But what I had to also explain is this is not a regular season. I'm not a newbie. I was invited back 5 years after my original season as one of 2 All-Stars. I may never get a shot again. This is a whole legacy on the line here, coach.
And Dougie, if you will allow me, let's speak on this elephant in the room that everyone wants to sidestep when it's convenient. I remember a brother named Monty Taylor during BB24 who took a black woman to Final 2 when black women had never won. And instead of people celebrating his sacrifice, they labeled him redacted for his sacrifice. They made him a mockery. They made him a laughing stock. And they acted as if what he did didn't matter for the culture because he thought he would win anyway. Instead of people propping up that moment, they decided to take away from the brother in that moment. Now, I'm not sure if this played any role in your decision at all, but I know if a black man is a super fan who happens to watch US recently, they would also know we can't beat sisters either in Final 2, especially if sisters have never won. I believe this is why Josh didn't take Betty. And I believe to an extent why it does make some sense why you thought you would have an easier chance beating Bailey because white women have won before.
I really thought for multiple reasons that I had a better shot against Bailey. Now, did I know that the jury was pro Bailey because of Spicy's campaign when she went in there? No, I didn't. Right? Did I know that they thought that, the underdog who was, fighting the entire game, girls play as 2. I love that speech, by the way. Very well done. I rate that.
Oh, yeah, she did. I mean, it hurt me to tweet what I tweeted, but that line about
No.
chess,
the chess.
Man.
That was nice.
That
was
I
nice.
was like, damn, she cooked my boy right
That
there.
was nice.
I can't be biased there.
That was nice. That was nice.
And you could tell she was rehearsing, coach. But But once again, though, a lot of those questions, though, were pro Bailey. So you weren't given the platform to explain your game fairly, in my opinion. No. Everything was a loaded question that was built upon, well, betrayal. We already know you can't be trusted. Yeah. So why should we care about you being at the end? It came with that energy. It wasn't okay, Dougie, my vote is in the air. Explain your game. Explain your story. When Spicy left the game, she claimed, I just want him to own his game and he could have my vote. You owned your game. It made no difference.
Made no difference.
She claimed, oh, I need to know what Dougie's plan was before he came in the game. Why does that matter when a black man can't afford to have a plan before he sees the cast he's on? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
it's facts, though.
Why are we creating these flaming hoops that brothers got to jump through, but we don't create them for anyone else while we act like we got our kufi on? Like, how does that work, coach? You know what I'm saying? But please continue. Huh?
So, like I said, in my mind, I was like, I think I lose either way. Like, I could see I could see them voting for Lexus because in my mind, right, as much as I saw how they were shitting on afterwards, how they were shitting on her in the jury, it was like they didn't understand how strong of a game she really played, right? What Bailey said in her speech, right? What they said, what's your number one thing you did in this game? She said, well, I aligned myself with the most powerful player. Oh, okay. Well, let's give you the win.
Right.
Yeah, you aligned yourself with Dougy.
I was a henchman of the player that deserves to win, so I should win.
So she says that, but you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's a very strong point. I was the most powerful player in the game. And if I did want people gone, they left. And if you did say my name, you went home. Every single person that said my name went home.
But
So
that would
it's
be
like,
like, but Dougie, that would be like in Redemption Island if the jury rewarded Philip over Boston Rob. Like, you don't reward the person who's literally isn't doing what they want all the time and is
yeah,
instead bending the knee to someone else's game. You don't reward them for that.
right.
And this is why I respect what Goose said in the jury. He said, there's a difference between floating and coasting. I can respect floating because it's a strategy, but coasting, not so much. That's why he gave you a vote, right?
Yeah,
Understood. Bailey's game is highly overrated to anyone that doesn't have a feminist tinted glasses on. And the thing is, I'm not going to hate on her. I do believe she played well. She probably played the third best game of the season, if not the fourth, maybe. I think Lexus played a better game. I think you played a better game. And I think it's an argument whether Spicy played a better game. But I believe Bailey got the better of her, so Bailey played better than Spicy. So
yeah.
that's how I really weigh it out. But at the end of the day, Coach, for me to see that jury roundtable, see some of the antics, people bringing props as if we're watching WCW Nitro. What is this? This Sandman with the kendo stick? Huh? You gonna bring some beer, some brewskis too, Coach? Huh? What's going on? I'm like, where's Stone Cold at when you need him? I'm watching this stuff and I'm just like, why are they so thirsty? Like, people were planning on you going out after they did so they could embarrass you at the round table. That's a different level of obsessive compulsive,
Yes, sir.
right? Like, at the end of the day, if Dougie's out the game, you should be happy. But if you were working that hard to embarrass him, if he left right after you, then you should also reward him if he proved you wrong again.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, every time you prove the naysayers wrong, it's like they get more bitter because they can't fathom how you keep making it happen. You
Yeah.
truly are the Bruce Wayne of this.
Thank
You
you,
truly
Billy.
are, bro.
And you know, just like I was saying, like when I was looking at Bailey's and Lexus's game, right? Because number one for me was, I think that, well, I know that the girls are gonna vote for, and even if they said afterwards, no, you know, you would have won against, no. If it were me and Lexus, which they asked them afterwards, it would have been 6-1. I lost either way, right? But that's okay, right? Because everybody saw what I was capable of. Everybody saw what I did. The only thing that was robbed of me was the money. The legacy is there. I'm happy and so proud of the game that I played. But looking at Bailey and Lexus, like I was looking at Lexus like, first of all, if you aligned yourself with power, then what did Lexus do? Right? What did Lexus do? Right? Lexus aligned herself with Matt, right? She had Tola and she had me. And to a certain extent, had the girls. And if the girls didn't get super intimidated by that, then they wouldn't have targeted Lexus. But even when they did target Lexus, what happened? Nothing happened to Lexus. You want to know why?
Because you had her back.
Because she aligned herself. She was the one who I really would have taken. And honestly, that's why I felt so bad afterwards, because it's like, me and Lexus were really rocking in that game. I would have done anything. I would have spun anything, flipped anything, backdoored anybody for that girl. I love that girl. That's my sister, bro.
I truly believe if Ty wins Final Four HOH over Bailey and Lexus cuts Bailey, you take Lexus every time before Ty.
100%.
Right? It was based off of how you perceive their game, based off how the jury appreciated their game. When you're seeing
100%.
firsthand Bailey disrespect Tola, Tola's never going to give her a vote, but he somehow did. Her disrespecting Goose, he's never going to give her a vote, somehow did. Her voting out Spicy after claiming to be all for the women making the end, which was her keeping Lexus over Spicy, who Bailey claimed she disliked as much as Spicy. Somehow that isn't held accountable either, or held against her either. You know, I could understand how someone from your perspective who doesn't have the vast information we have, because we have these dailies to watch, you still were right on the ball. And it's hilarious to me how on the ball I was with your philosophy without even seeing you on the feeds to know as much. And that's
great minds think alike, man.
And it's because I had the pleasure of watching you on feeds before. So when I know, and see, I think a lot of these fans are new fans, because Dougie, I got to tell you, the timeline of this season was something funny. When you first got confirmed for this cast, a lot of people faked the funk. The same people who said you played bad the first time immediately, oh, he's one of the greatest ever. All of a sudden they switch up. Then throughout the season, you start getting your way week one. Then Dinis goes because you convinced Vivek to backdoor him. Then they go, oh, this is why I never liked him. And then that's when I started to see the narrative shift back to where it was in BBCAN12 again.
Facts.
But now, a week away, a week removed, well, basically a week and a half removed now from the finale, now you're starting to see the dust really settle, and you're starting to notice no one cares about the winner's game very much. No one cares about the bitter jury's perspective very much. They care about the main character, the protagonist, the forbidden one, Dougy, huh?
Come on,
Ragnar
Daddy.
Lothbrok. You know what I'm saying, Coach?
Grrr.
You know what I'm saying? The Razor Ramon of this thing here. The New World Order. Huh? That's
Come
what they
on.
care about, because they know deep down in their heart of hearts, you were the one who made this season interesting, because if you weren't there to combat the onslaught that was the Girls Alliance, the season is completely boring. But people aren't even willing to give you credit for that. You provided them, and this is why I tell people, be careful what you wish for. They're removing black men by the numbers each season. But the minute we aren't around, who are all of y'all going to dislike, which generates the heat, which generates the interest? Every wrestling match needs a heel to go with a baby face. It's as if they just want a bunch of baby faces fighting. Who's going to care about that? Everyone's a good guy.
Talk your shit, my boy.
And this is why, Dougy.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
You feel a dig me, Coach? That's the real story here.
Yes, sir.
Your game is going to be talked about forever. A lot of players on this season, though, good luck with that, Coach. You might not even make it a month from now. Huh? I mean, we're talking about people whose channels are on life support. If they would have been loyal to you in that jury and made sure you won, you would have helped them cook something serious.
Forever,
now what content you gonna make? Now black folks know you a grifter, huh? Now they know you've been faking the funk. You can't go to Juneteenth no more after what you just did, huh? See, we're going to talk about it right now. See, I ain't even got to say names. We know who I'm discussing.
Yes, sir,
At
bro.
the end of the day, a lot of people played themselves. Oh, I'm going to get even with him. But what does that do for you?
Yeah.
Dougy's going to find a way. That's what his game is about. But your game is that of someone who needs everything to go their way just to make it to Final Five.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really the saddest part. I wanted us to have a type of ending to this season where no matter what, people could overcome their differences. Dougy's the winner. He gets to be the ambassador for this show as the winner, holding the belt, certified GOAT. He can push this brand to another level. BBUS from BBCAN now is more likely to happen because you got a certified GOAT now. Now the conversations, BBUS players are like, oh, wait a minute, we don't got no GOAT that got this type of resume. And then it creates that traction. It creates that conversation. And before you know it, we have spinoff shows. We have different avenues for other people to make good money. Like, I don't think people understand how much they squandered the bag for everyone by making an emotional decision here. Because I got to be honest, Dougy, this felt like Godfrey losing to Sarah Hanlon. No disrespect to Sarah, but after she won, yeah, she hosted the sideshow for a little bit, did a decent job with Peter Brown, no shade. But outside of that, no one really talks about Sarah as one of the best players ever, right? She basically faded off into the distance again, but everyone remembers Godfrey doing that karate kick in the air. Everyone remembers that. And that's how I view you, bro. Everyone's going to remember your promos. Everyone's going to remember your confessionals. Everyone's going to remember what you stood for. And most importantly, people are going to remember you were robbed twice. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's better to be robbed than actually be the winner, because people want to see you again when you don't win. And that's my next question, Dougy. Would you be willing to play reality TV again, Big Brother Canada again, and would you be willing to play a U.S. versus Canada season?
You know, when I came off season 7, and I went and I had my post-production meeting, they told me, you just played quite possibly the best game we've ever seen in our entire lives. We are so thankful. And this is Aaron. This is Lauren. These are the executive producers of the show. Just
Much
really
respect.
giving me my flowers, and telling me how proud they were and how, just incredible the gameplay was. They hadn't seen anything like that before. And they said, just know you're coming back for an all-star season. Are you going to do it? And I said 150% I'm down. I didn't know when it was going to be. I knew that they were going to call me. When they did call me this time, to be completely honest, I was really, really not in the right headspace. There was many, many things, I'm not going to touch on them now,
Of course.
but there were many, many things going on in my life that, really made me question whether or not I could perform. Right? If I'm semi-retired, do I want to come out of retirement with 2 fractured ankles? Right? Am I going to be able to play the best of my ability and give what I can to the team, which is really the culture that I'm standing behind for this show, right?
And we love you for that, brother. The fact that you was able to still deliver under all of those circumstances. To create another sports analogy for you, I remember the Brett Favre game without getting in too much detail as to what happened, which is considered the Brett Favre game. He showed up and he balled out that next game, and people, that's embedded in their memories. The idea that Brett Favre went through something, he showed up for work and he dominated. It made Brett Favre look even cooler. I'm from Chicago. We hate Brett Favre, but did we hate him after that game? No. And that's my point, right? There's greatness and then there's undeniable GOATs. You're an undeniable GOAT, bro.
Thank you, bro.
Undeniable, bro.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that so much, bro. And honestly, I really wanted to do it, for my friend, for myself, for the fans that have been sticking by me. A lot of people called me some pretty horrible names after season 7. I wasn't the one punching boxes. I wasn't the one, screaming at other people and throwing temper tantrums. I really held my ground. I did what was best, and the things that I was labeled were absolutely crazy.
People acting like this, you said, that's why I didn't hit the block, Kira. They act like that was worse than what Spicy did to you.
Yeah. So, I wanted to come back for a combination of things. But number one, most important, I really wanted to be able to perform. And there were many days, I know they didn't show it because I feel like they were protecting me a bit, but I had some pretty dark days in there where I would spend, some time in the washrooms just to clear my head. I would just go in the washroom, I'd take my battery out my mic, and I would, wipe my tears, and I'd get back on the playing field. And that's not to try to make my game sound even greater. I'm just talking about the strong difficulties, the human element factor that I had to face inside that house. When I think about coming back again, which no matter who they put in the house, I will be the biggest target in the game. I all I care about is whether or not I'm in the mental state to perform. Whether or not I can give the people who support me and who rock with me and who believe in me a reason to chant, to show up to the stadium, to buy the popcorn, to buy the drinks, to sit there and root. When I dunk into the crowd and I look up, those are the people that I'm looking at, right? My fans, the people who actually support me and understand my language. So, when I think about whether or not I would come back, would I love to come back and hustle a bunch of jabronis on BBCAN? Well, of course. I think it would be incredible if they could get the funding for a BBCAN, BBUS. I would 100% do that, as long as they put the best of the best in there. Because no matter what happens, right, on season 7, I'm with dominant males. I'm with people who don't like me. All the odds against me. I'm a recruit, rookie, don't know much about the game. Finals. Right, I come on season 12, all those accolades, all those things. I come on to season 12, biggest target in the game. Right, couldn't remember his days before. He couldn't win competitions before. He couldn't do whatever. Finals.
Did all of that the second time.
Second time. So the thing is, and this is coming from the most humble place on earth, but if I go on a BBCAN BBUS season, you better believe I'm coming full throttle. If I'm in the right headspace, I'm coming full throttle. And then what they gonna say?
And honestly, I feel like a lot of these U.S. people ain't gonna see your game coming because a lot of them ain't watching enough.
They're not
and
watching.
I think the Canadian players are gonna have more of a great understanding and assessment of the U.S. group than the U.S. group will have of them. I think that gives you all a great advantage, and y'all have more to prove too. And if y'all can guarantee one of you win, what that will do for Big Brother Canada is exponential. And Dougie, I know you don't have that much time, so I'm going to do a quick rapid fire question. These are
Yes, sir.
from the patrons. And thank you so much for being here. Please smash that like button, ladies and gentlemen. Please show Dougie your appreciation in the comment section below. He didn't have to do this, but he did it, and it means the world to me. From Usopp's lawyer, proud patron, they ask, if you could pick any all-star to play with this season to replace Victoria, male or female, who would it have been?
Not for my season?
Can be from any season of Big Brother Canada, coach. Great questions.
That's a great question. I'd have to lock in on Adam Pike. It's a big toss up between him and Dane. Both of those guys are real loyal to the soil. I don't have to worry about them. Adam ain't gonna make the same mistake with a showmance this time. And I really think we could lock in and take over. Now, if I were to choose somebody that's not from my season, I love Tyshawn. I love Jed. They did my boy Jed dirty, but I love Jed.
He did my boy dirty.
Right? And I also love Ty. Ball game he's a different kind of competitor.
T-Mac.
Right? He put his head down and ran through the wall.
Absolutely.
That's my dog. Any one of those guys, if I had them on a season, it's a wrap, broski.
And salute to Ty, man. He really had your back, man. And
yeah.
Ty got a little bit of heat because on finale night, him, Jamar, a few other people, they couldn't believe what they witnessed. You know what I mean? And it kind of let me know what was gonna happen. So I at least was prepared for the worst case scenario. So shout outs to them. I didn't go in blindsided, right?
Yeah.
All right, next question from Tempest Prime, longtime follower of the channel, big time subscriber and patron. Which season between BBCAN7 and 12 did Dougie wish he won the most?
Do I wish I was between 7 and 12?
Which one do you think would you have wanted to win the most? Yes.
12 for sure. I do believe, honestly, that I played a better game than Dane. He was a well-deserving winner. That was my dog. It was loyalty over money. He played an incredible game. One of the most well-rounded players that this game has ever seen, and I give him his flowers. Season 12, my comeback season, my opportunity to really shine against all odds, the biggest target, to be able to get to the finals when every single person was walking around that house looking at me sideways for an entire season and couldn't do anything about it is crazy, is absolutely crazy. And I wish I had won that one, because if I did, there's nothing that anybody could have said.
I thought I was watching Little Rascals the way they had a He-Man hater club. You feel it? Dig me, coach. Great answer. Okay, we got a next question from Rod. We're going to try to do this in rapid fire. Would you do, is BBCAN harder or easier to play as a black man compared to BBUS?
I've only watched bits and pieces of a few seasons of the US. I really like the format of Canadian better. But I think it's more difficult in Canada. I really, really do. And that's just from my knowledge. I might be biased because, I've watched way more seasons, gone way in depth with the seasons that I've seen since season 7. But from being a black man inside the show, it's extremely difficult. To be social, I don't think people understand how difficult the element of having a social game really is. It's understanding people who don't understand you. It's coming across. I'm 6'5", 300 pounds, tatted. I wear velvet do-rag. I have a different velvet do-rag. I could wear a different velvet do-rag for 3 months straight, Coachy. All right? It's intimidating. It's difficult. People they stare, they look at me differently. And if people aren't willing to admit that, then you're just blind to the truth. But I think it's definitely more difficult for me, especially considering the lack of black male representation that has been on the seasons from what I've seen.
Okay, next question is from Abdi Dougie. Great answer. Do you regret taking Lexus to Final 2 over Bailey now that you know what you know? Or now that you also know they probably would have rigged it against you regardless, would you still make the same decision?
I don't regret on taking Bailey. I do believe, even still at this point, that those were my best odds. Whether or not they said, whatever they said, if Lexus had to come there and she had said anything like I was against all odds, if she had said girls is players too, the girls would have said, yeah, girl, and they would have voted for her. It's just funny after the fact that they can say that. But I do believe that my best odds were against Bailey. And in my personal opinion, I do actually think that Lexus played a better game. So
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I believe it's way harder for Lexus to traverse through this game than Bailey on a season like that.
yeah,
The way all the women were all against her, the way she was stripped of having even her showman's and jury. For this group of players to believe that Matt didn't deserve to vote on a winner, that's disgusting to me. That's absolutely disgusting to me. A little bit of technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Dougie will be right back. But honestly, for them to decide, and listen, Goose still gave Dougie his vote, right? Goose still gave Dougie a vote. So I'm in no way trying to imply anything there, but I just thought it was a bit repulsive there. But so at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your likes. Thank you so much for everything. We're going to get to the rest of these questions. I know Dougie doesn't have all the time in the world, so we're going to speed through these. Next question is from Bauer Mode. How would you have played the game differently now knowing Hot Chocolate was a fake alliance from the start?
I would have looked at. Truthfully, I wish I hadn't wasted so much time thinking that Victoria was loyal to me.
Mm,
I wish I had to look deeper into the players around me. I do believe I could have separated Kayla from Avery and Spicy very early in the game and brought her over to the side of me and Lex. Um, I knew that hot chocolate was fake. Was fake. As soon as these girls started talking about each other, that doesn't sound like the alliance that I know.
yeah,
And I do think that there was definitely some things I could have done differently, and definitely aligning myself with some other players earlier on in the game on a deeper level would have definitely helped me later on in the game, especially in jury.
absolutely. That's a fantastic question. Thank you so much, Dougie. I appreciate you. We definitely going to do one of these again, maybe during BB26. I would love for the culture to see your perspective on a game you don't have to actually be part of, because they'll 100% get to see you're just a mastermind who can
Yeah.
really break down the game as much as I can. And that's why we have so much mutual respect. Is there anything else you would like to leave the audience with, sir?
I would like to say, and I kind of started off with this. I don't really like doing podcasts, but I have been a fan of this show, of this man, since I heard him speak, since I saw him break down these games from a black, not just from a black male perspective, but also from a gamer. Like it's like he's played the game many times before, and to have somebody's perspective on that is something that not just the majority of these fans need to see, but the culture needs to see it. This show is for the culture. This show is for the gamers. I'm so thankful to have finally gotten a chance to be on this. I'm honored to be on this. And anytime you want the big Valboski on this show, you hit my line, broski, and I'm dead there. Eh?
Hey, it's a bet, isn't it? You feel it, dig me? It's
Come on.
long for these players in BB26.
Come on,
But
daddy.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this impromptu Game of the GOAT and Anthony Douglas deep dive. We truly went through every nook and cranny of this game and really got to shine a light and provide more transparency on the psychology of a black man within a game in which it was pretty much rigged against him. But he still found a way to play his best game, get to final two, and give himself the best chance he could to truly make history. And he ended up making history anyway. And that is what is truly so beautiful about this moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could, please don't forget to like this video, comment underneath it, and share with all of the fans of Big Brother Canada you rock with. And until next time, we'll see you later. Deuces.